Welcome to 23rd Arpa International Film Festival. I'm Maral Kazazian, and I'm the director of the festival. Today, we have the distinct honor of speaking with the filmmakers of the amazing documentary, An Armenian Trilogy. So we'll be having an informal discussion with the director of the film, Yessian, and the producer, Ohad Wilner. And I'm very, very pleased that you are both able to join us today. And I would like to start by asking you to please tell me a little bit about yourselves.
Well, first of all, yes, Maral, thank you for having us. I really do appreciate being part of the festival. It's an honor. And in terms of my background, I'm a musician, composer, and that is really the thrust of my talent. I would not call myself a filmmaker in the true spirit of that kind of an occupation, but my story is a long story that falls into this film. Where I started was as a musician playing clarinet and saxophone, and then moving into doing music for commercials, for television and radio, and then having the freedom to be able to enter into other things. But this is a very, very much of a nugget that goes from my youth to my now age of 76 years old. So it's been a long ride. It's been a long musical ride where I started with creating music for Sesame Street and the Electric Company, and then moving on into other facets that involve Disney and Coca-Cola, and then into United Airlines, and then a moment in time when the priest at our church asked if I would be capable. Well, he didn't use those words. He said, would you be interested in creating a piece of music in commemoration of the Armenian genocide? And so you would think that somebody who was doing jingles for a living would say, no, I can't do that. But the challenge was so interesting that I needed to get into that foray. And probably more so because as an Armenian who had never been to Armenia, I wanted to make a study of my roots and go back to a place, as I say in the film, that I had never been before. I started out in music with a scenario that involves growing up in a household that's not where my mother and father are Armenian, but I'm trying to assimilate with American children in elementary school. What do they know of Armenia? And we're talking back in the 50s. What did they know? And how different did I feel as somebody who's trying to assimilate, especially with my mother, who actually was raised in Cuba from the age of 2 to 16. And the reason that they came to America was because they were told there's a bridge from Cuba to America. And so there was a colonization of Armenians that were actually in Cuba. I think I'm bouncing around a lot here, but I will try to get back to my anchor where I felt kind of ostracized because my mother had this Cuban accent, being an Armenian and coming from Greece and a lot of other places that she came to and then ended up in America. And then my father, who came from Izmir, Turkey, and he ended up here, and they were brought together in an arranged marriage, which is another story, but I'm not going to go there. And then through all these things and this assimilation of wanting to fit in as an Armenian kid where there were no Armenian people around me, when this calling came to create music, and I'm all about music. I'm not really about films, but I'll tell you about that later. When it was about the music, I thought, he's asking me to do something to commemorate a genocide that happened over 100 years ago. And the thought of doing that was compelling. I thought, this is your opportunity. You were raised as an American boy in Detroit, but you had always been told about your Armenianism, even though you did not willingly accept it as a child because you were trying to fit in with the Odars, excuse me. So it was that. And that brings me up to that calling from our priest, Father Godabek Kochakian, at Emeritus at St. John Armenian Church in Detroit. And I thought, okay, I have to do this. But how can you create music for over 20 minutes when you've been doing jingles that are 30 seconds and 60 seconds? It was a daunting task. But I was up for it, and I believe that my calling came from somewhere else, from the priest, and from somewhere else, and yes.
So Dan and I have been working side by side for a good 6 years now, I think, on various projects, working on to produce artists or various content. And I remember when Dan initially began the process of writing the melodies and the chords, and it was all a really compelling process to watch from the side at first. The music was originally composed as a duet for violin and piano, and it was debuted in 2015 at Macomb Community Center, I think it's called, and it was a really nice reception. It was a really nice performance. Sonia Lee on violin and Sean McDonald, I believe, on piano. It was just phenomenal. And with the success of that event, I think that sparked something in Dan to really expand on it and make it a full orchestral arrangement. And it really became something special. It was written out for over 90 instruments. It was recorded, obviously, by the Armenian Philharmonic in Yerevan at the Khachaturian Concert Hall. It doesn't get any better than that, I don't think. And while I wasn't able to join him on his trip, I was able to join him through the journey of making this movie. And it's a phenomenal story. It's a phenomenal piece of music. I don't know, I would encourage anybody who is interested either in the classical music realm or the story of the Armenian people, and also the story of a man who is following his passion and succeeded and did something very noteworthy, no pun intended.
So how did you feel, Dan, when you first went to Armenia and you arrived at the airport?
Well, that's a very good question, because growing up in Detroit and not being around a lot of Armenians, except when you go to church on Sundays and you're surrounded by Armenian people, going to Armenia and looking at the stage where you have a conductor in the name of Edward Topchin conducting 90 pieces, and all of these people look like you, like me. And I thought, where would I find 90 people that look like me? I have to tell you, I felt my heart was just flushed with exuberance, that how could I see all of these people that are my nationality, and where have you been? Where have I been? It's a daunting thing. And it was, I was excited. I was so excited. I was excited for that. I was excited, you know, as a musician, honestly, you know, you're also concerned about what is this performance going to be, because you've never had this work performed by 90 people yet. You had a duet, as Ohad has mentioned, back in Michigan. But now it's 90 people. Who's going to mess up? Who's going to make a mistake? Who's going to do something that's going to just rankle me? I love these people. These are my people. And so this whole, you know, emotional ride that you're going through was amazing for me. And we brought it back, and we were very, very happy from their performance. And, you know, through time, I had recorded a lot of symphony orchestras. Our company has recorded the New York Philharmonic, the London Symphony Orchestra, for various commercials, whether it's for United Airlines or Disney, or we've done the World Trade Center. When the towers went down, we did music for at that time, a new One World Trade Center and recorded that music with the New York Philharmonic, and then so things like that. But this particular experience, going back to Armenia, was very special for me. And I'm so privileged that the culmination, basically, of where I came from and where I have gone has completed for me this love of my own people, where in the very beginning, I was kind of pushing it away because I'm playing American music. Well, I was in an Armenian band, and they were teaching me the notes and the Armenian delivery of a clarinet that I would do, and so on and so forth. But the idea that I would be able to traverse from there to now here is completes me. So
from what I heard is that this is sort of like your legacy.
I would say so, yeah. And people have said, you know, well, Dan, this must be your legacy. Yeah, well, we had joked, Ohad and I, earlier before, and said, well, on your tombstone, what is it going to say? Dan Yessian, jingle writer. That doesn't ring too well, you know, I mean, but to say, to equate me with a work that has, to my mind, significance relative to something that happened over 100 years ago. And Ohad, by the way, who is Jewish, was able to relate to all of this through our relationship, because naturally there was the Holocaust. And wherever I was, that's where he was in our thought process. And we corrected each other in places, saying, is it this, is it that, and whatever. No, it's this, it's right there, you know. And but as I told you before, Maral, I don't consider myself a filmmaker in the true sense. I've been able to surround myself with people like Ohad Wilner and like Stuart Shevin, who is also not Armenian, he's also Jewish. And, you know, I'm thinking, well, okay, so, but they have been able to understand what this is. And Stuart being a great editor, and Ohad with his production abilities and so on and so forth, were able to bring us to a place where this was a ride, a journey going back home. And it's kind of that.
Dan and I share a lot of commonalities, and we have a shared aesthetic language, and we just we connect on a lot of different levels, both musically and personally, and it's really interesting to watch, or to be a part of, really something that I do identify with. Both of my parents are Israeli. I'm first generation American, so I experienced all the same types of things with assimilation. I didn't want to be different from the kids in my class. I just wanted to fit in. My name is Ohad. What's an Ohad? I can't even count with the hairs on my head. So you're always longing to be a part of something that's bigger than you, and whether it's a nationality or a religion or whatever it is, even a peer group, a social group, and I just really connected with it, with all of the different messages that the movie conveys.
Well, we have a lot in common. Our ancestors suffered a lot. We had, and I don't know if you guys believe in. It's like probably, I lost my parents about 10 years ago, and I woke up around 3 o'clock last night, and I was thinking about today's interview and the discussion about your beautiful film. And it's all of a sudden it was like maybe my grandmother or mother was talking to me, and I had to write down when I think, and it said, leave the past in the past, and don't bring it in the present. Learn from it and move on. So I don't know why I thought about that all of a sudden. It's like when everyone's going to recognize the genocide as genocide, and we are all suffering because of that. We're waiting, for U.S. to finally recognize our genocide as the Armenian genocide, and we know it happened. Everybody knows it happens, and what you did, Dan, is one step going to that direction. It's for people to see this film, to see your beautiful composition. I mean, it's very hard for someone to watch this film and not feel it. And I could see the tears in your eyes during the fate part of the film, where you are, listening to the concert. And what was going through your body during that time?
It's a great question. As I was saying to you earlier, I had the calling from the priest. I had the notion of another place, another time that I would bring forward. And by the way, I was playing the piece. I was writing the piece on Burt Bacharach's piano because, yeah, I had purchased the piano in 2005 and on an auction, a Grammy Award auction, actually. But so that inspiration was coming from Mr. Bacharach and from the priest and from God. And I have to tell you, when I was writing, my wife would occasionally come down, Kathy, and she would say, why are you crying? And I had to say, I'm being messaged here from up above. I can't explain it. Have I written a symphony before that lasts 20 minutes? Never, 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 never. And so this came together, and I don't want to get, cheesy about the whole thing, but this came in some kind of a revelation. So I can't even explain it, but that's what was going through me. The music had its movements. We start with, as you see in the movie, the freedom. People who are free to express, to do, to whatever, to live life. And then to fear because of opposing forces, external forces, or maybe forces within, I'm not sure, and then finally the struggle of where you're asking me for faith. The movement, the third movement, I'm pushing and I'm pulling tempos, and I'm changing, I'm trying to express to you what it is to be able to struggle with, why would he do these things? Did he do this? That the people had fallen to all of this? And why does it persist with other Holocausts and genocides through time? Why is this happening? but the music is designed to express, to interpret the feelings. As the Bible will say, you know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think, you know, we don't get that. We don't get the grasp, the full grasp of that. How can you do things to other people without experiencing them yourself? And when you do experience them yourself, you're going to say, oh my God, I don't know, why did I do, you know, there's something's got to happen there.
You know, Dan, I think one thing that this music does is it puts the listener right in the shoes of the people experiencing what you're talking about. It's an emotional experience expressed through music.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Definitely. I fully agree with you, Ohad. I think that is well said, well put. That's exactly what this film does, and that's exactly what this composition does. And you know, it's I really like the way your wife Kathy was, you know, in the documentary. I really like the way she talked about. I think she's more Armenian than a lot of Armenians
Yes,
that are born Armenian.
Absolutely.
And her encouragement that she gave to you, I think that must have played a major role in the success of your journey.
Huge role, right. And you know, the other thing is that I alluded to the fact that I'm not really a filmmaker in the true sense of filmmaking, but when going to Armenia with my nephew, Matthew Yessian, and with both my sons, you know, we said on the way back home, you know, I wonder if we could do something with this, because to document this trip might be interesting to Armenians and non-Armenians alike. And that's where, you know, that motivation came from. And with the hope that Armenians or Armenia is not the only focal point about this, that it seeds itself in other atrocities that have occurred, whether it's the Holocaust or, as I point out in the movie, Darfur and all these other places around the world where these kinds of things are happening. We're not totally exclusive, but we are able to shed some light if people can go back and say, why did this happen 100 some odd years ago? Why did that happen with the Jews? Why did that happen with, you know, with the American Indians? Why don't we talk more about that? You know, so there is this social injustice that persists, and I'm hoping through, maybe, I don't know, through music, that people could feel in their heart something here. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, as they say, music is the universal language, and I'm a true believer of that. And you don't need interpretation. Everybody has their own, and they feel what they hear. And that's what Arpa International Film Festival is all about. It was founded 23 years ago by this amazing woman, Sylvia Minassian. And her main passion, the goal, is to give a platform for independent filmmakers.
It's been a delight to speak with you. I'm so honored that we're part of this festival. I know both Ohad and myself were saying, well, this is pretty cool. Because it has a lot of special meaning for me in particular, with regardless of what other festivals there are and so on and so forth. This one was very important to me. So we're honored to be a part of this. Thank you so much.
It's a true honor to be featured with all the other films, and even being nominated. That's big smiles.
I know you said you're not a filmmaker. This was one of the first film you made, right?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Are you thinking about doing more films after this documentary?
I don't know. You know, I mean, I have to tell you, from my perspective as a musician, dealing in film, we had a lot of archival material in this film, not just of genocide, but other things. And we had to have our approvals, our licensing, and all of that. The attorney, we use an attorney in New York City, and he said, all these things that you want to prove now should have been done before you started the film. So we had to go back to a lot of people and say, are you willing to sign a release for this or that or whatever? And people were, they're looking at me kind of like, are you trying to pull something over on us or whatever? We've made virtually no money on this film. It's been an exercise in passion. I wanted to do this, but we had to go through a lot. To the question, would I do this again? I'm not so sure. I like composing music. This was a thought on an airplane coming back from Armenia to Detroit and suggesting this could be more than, a family film, that it could be broader. And the thrust to push it that way was because of the cause, because of genocide, that it was important to get the word out. And it's been out there in books and movies, naturally, in other ways, but this is one more adjunct to all of that. And would it not be a good thing to be able to push this message, to continue to push this message? So that's what this was. I don't know, Maral, if I could do this again.
I was just going to ask you one last question. I know you started with the Jingles, and that was started, making money and so forth. The excitement in the film, it's very, very nice. Which one is your best jingle? Something that you really love?
Oh my gosh. Well, unfortunately, nobody on the other side of our geography, meaning anybody outside of Detroit, would not know, but I did years and years ago a fur commercial called Dietrich Furs. Well, that started back, Ohad, how old is that commercial now?
Oh boy, don't make me look it up. It's been around for a minute.
Yeah, it might be considered the longest running commercial. It's for Dietrich Furs. It went, Dietrich, dependability, and it goes on from there. And it started back in the early 80s, and it still plays to this day. And normally when you're doing commercials, there is some little bit of a royalty or residual payment for that. But I didn't receive anything because that was a time when our family was struggling and we're just trying to make money, and to raise a family and to whatever. But starting with that, I thought, boy, if I had a nickel for every time they played that from then until now, which it still plays, it would be very, very nice. But that never happened. But, there's so many other things that we've done that go beyond the scope of local to national, for Dodge, for Ford, for Disney, for Coca-Cola, for whichever. So it's been a long ride, but it's been a good ride. I've been able to carve out a living doing music, which is not the easiest thing to do, especially from Detroit. Now, we're in New York City and we're in Los Angeles and we're in Hamburg, Germany. So the company has opened up quite a bit. And that's due to mostly to my sons, Brian and Michael Yessian, who have forged that continuance of what we're able to do. So fortunately, I'm very blessed to have a couple boys that were able to carry the old man's thing out, dream out. So, yeah.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I am confident that our audience is going to enjoy listening to you after seeing the film. And we will also be using some little portions of this Q&A. We will share it with you so you can tell your audience, your followers, so that they will come to the festival virtually and watch your film and our Q&A.
Thank you, Maral. Thank you again for inviting us into this. It's been a great pleasure for me to speak with you.